I only need one sandwich for my mom. Sir? The little black girl whispered, pushing $1.17 across the glass counter with both hands. The bakery went quiet in that polished, expensive way rich places go quiet when poverty steps inside without permission. Behind her, Julian Cross stopped with his contract folder under one arm. The girl did not look at him. She looked past the pastries, past the cashier's tight smile, toward the steel door marked staff only, and said, "She's back there. They won't let me see her." 3 hours earlier, Veil and Crust had opened its doors to the kind of morning that looked almost rehearsed. Warm lights glowed over marble counters. Silver tongs rested beside rows of almond croissants, lemon brioche, and small cakes dusted with powdered sugar so fine it looked like fresh snow. Outside, delivery trucks hissed at the curb. Inside, customers in wool coats spoke softly into phones, ordering breakfast as if names like rosemary focaccia and fig butter were ordinary things. Every sound had money in it. The soft tap of credit cards, the low hum of espresso machines, the clean click of leather shoes on stone. At the far end of the block, Maya Brooks stood under the striped awning of a closed convenience store, counting coins in her palm for the 4th time. She was 8, maybe small for 8, with a navy coat too thin for the February wind and 2 braids that had begun to loosen near her cheeks. Her fingers were stiff from cold, but she kept separating the coins carefully. Quarters first, then dimes, then nickels, then the pennies that stuck to her skin. $1.17. She already knew it was not enough. She counted again anyway, because children who have nothing learn to hope numbers might change if they are touched gently enough. In her other hand, she held a folded paper from the free clinic. The corner was soft from being opened and closed too many times. Her mother's name was printed near the top, Nadine Brooks. Below it, in a doctor's rushed handwriting, were instructions Maya could not fully understand except for 3 words her mother had repeated the night before while trying not to shake. Take. With food. Maya had asked what food. Nadine had smiled and said, "Don't worry, baby. I'll eat at work." But Maya had seen the lie. She had seen her mother tuck an empty lunch bag into her purse. She had seen her press one hand against the kitchen wall before leaving for the night shift. She had seen the sleeve of her uniform hanging from the chair, dusted with cinnamon-colored flour that never washed out. Now Maya stared across the street at Veil and Crust. Through the front windows, she could see baskets of bread stacked high enough to feed a classroom. She waited until a woman with a stroller opened the door, then slipped in behind her. Heat wrapped around Maya's face at once. Butter, coffee, sugar, and fresh bread filled her chest so quickly that her stomach cramped. She did not move toward the cakes. She did not ask for the pretty rolls. She walked to the small tray near the register, where yesterday's returned sandwiches sat under a handwritten tag. Discount, $1.50. The cashier saw her coat before she saw her face. "Can I help you?" she asked, already tired. Maya placed her coins on the counter. "I don't need a new one, ma'am," she said. "Just half." The cashier glanced at the money, then at the line forming behind her. "Not enough." Maya swallowed. "It's for my mom." A man behind her sighed. Someone whispered. Then Marcus Vale appeared from the side hallway, smiling like a man stepping onto a stage. "Maya," he said softly, but his eyes sharpened. "We talked about this." At that exact moment, the front door opened again, and Julian Cross entered for the contract meeting that was supposed to make Marcus famous. Julian did not step forward. Not yet. He remained just inside the doorway, one black leather glove still in his hand, watching the room rearrange itself around the child. People did not move away from Maya all at once. They did it politely, almost invisibly. A woman lifted her purse from the counter and tucked it under her arm. A man in a navy overcoat shifted his son behind his leg. The cashier slid the tray of discounted sandwiches 2 inches farther back, as if one small hand might become a crime if it reached too quickly. Marcus Vale kept smiling. That was the worst part. His voice stayed warm, low, practiced, the kind of voice donors trusted and employees feared. "Sweetheart," he said, bending slightly toward Maya, "you know customers aren't supposed to be involved in staff matters. Maya did not look at the customers. She looked at the steel door. My mom is staff. Marcus gave a soft, regretful laugh, then glanced around as if asking the room to forgive him for what he was about to say. Her mother was temporary staff. Night prep. Very short arrangement. We tried to be generous. He turned toward Julian then, finally noticing him with theatrical surprise. Mr. Cross, I apologize. This isn't how we usually welcome partners. Julian's eyes moved from Marcus to Maya's coins. $1.17, spread in a crooked line on the glass. He said nothing. Marcus took the silence as permission. Maya has had a difficult few weeks, he continued. There were boundary issues, unauthorized kitchen access, missing food, a few advances her mother didn't repay. I hate discussing this in public. His face tightened with sympathy so neat it looked ironed on. The word missing traveled through the line like a stain. Maya's shoulders drew in, but her chin did not drop. My mama didn't steal. The cashier sighed through her nose. Honey, this is a business. Marcus raised one hand gently, stopping her. It's all right. She's a child. She doesn't understand payroll or policy. Then he gestured toward the back hallway, where a security guard in a gray blazer had appeared without making a sound. Derek, could you please make sure she gets outside safely? Maya took one step back, not because she was afraid of leaving, but because the sandwich tray had moved even farther away. I just need it before she takes her medicine. That sentence made Julian's eyes narrow. Medicine? He asked quietly. Marcus answered before Maya could. Again, Mr. Cross, private family matters. Also, food safety regulations are very strict. No minors beyond that door. No exceptions. He pointed to the staff-only sign as if it were federal law. Insurance, liability, contamination risk. I know you understand procedure. Julian did understand. Procedure. He had built an empire on it. Procedure protected companies. Procedure also buried people. Maya reached into her coat and pulled out something cracked and blue, hanging from a broken plastic clip. A staff badge. The photo was scratched, but the name was clear. Nadine Brooks. Night prep. Marcus's smile did not move, but one finger tapped once against his thigh. A lost badge, he said. Possibly stolen. Maya rubbed her thumb over the corner. It wasn't lost. It was in her coat when they threw it by the dumpsters. Derek stepped closer. Julian noticed a brown-orange dust caught in the cracked edge of the badge, the same color as the powder under Maya's fingernails. Maya saw him looking. That's cinnamon mix, she whispered. Only night prep uses it. Morning staff gets the dough after it's rolled. For the first time, Marcus stopped smiling for half a second, and in that half second, Julian Cross finally saw something that did not belong in the bakery. Julian's gaze stayed on that cinnamon dust longer than anyone expected. It was not proof. Not in the legal sense. Not in the way boardrooms used the word proof. But it was specific, and specific things had weight. Lies usually floated. Marcus must have felt the shift, because he straightened and let out a patient little breath. Mr. Cross, children notice colors. That doesn't mean they understand employment records. He turned to Maya, still gentle enough for the customers. Maya, where did you get that badge? Maya's fingers closed around it. From my mom's coat. And where is that coat now? Behind the dumpsters. A few people in line looked away. Marcus nodded sadly, as if she had just confirmed his version. Exactly. We removed abandoned property after her mother failed to report properly. That's standard closing procedure. Maya shook her head. She didn't abandon it. Her voice was small, but it did not break. Her bus card is in the pocket. She never leaves her bus card. Julian watched Marcus's eyes flick, fast and involuntary, toward the side hallway. Not the steel kitchen door. Not the register. The side hallway. It lasted less than a second. Then Marcus smiled again. Mr. Cross, if we could. Step into my office. I can explain the vendor agreement without this unfortunate interruption. Maya suddenly reached into the inside lining of her coat. The movement made Derek shift forward, but she only pulled out a folded piece of paper, soft from being hidden too long. It was torn across the bottom, one half missing, the top edge stained with something greasy. She held it out to Julian with both hands. "My mom told me numbers don't cry," she said, "but they tell the truth." Julian took the paper. The bakery sounds thinned around him. Espresso steam, plates, the door chime, someone whispering behind a scarf. Printed near the top was Nadine Brooks. Hours worked, 72.5. Net pay, $6.40. Deductions, meal advance, uniform fee, housing support. At the bottom was a signature, N. Brooks. Marcus chuckled softly. Payroll deductions look alarming when removed from context. He leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to sound professional. Her mother accepted advances. We helped with meals, transportation, temporary housing referrals. Everything was signed. Julian did not look up. 72.5 hours. Holiday volume, Marcus said smoothly. Everyone works hard in food service. Maya stepped closer to the glass counter, where the paper lay beneath Julian's hand. That's not her signature. Marcus's face softened with pity. Sweetheart, children don't always know how adults sign documents. Maya opened the clinic paper she had been holding since morning. At the bottom, beside the pharmacy stamp, was another signature. Nadine Brooks. She placed it next to the pay stub. My mom signs with her left hand, Maya said, because her right wrist got burned on the oven door last winter. Julian leaned in. The clinic signature leaned left, the last letter sliding downward as if the hand had grown tired. The payroll signature leaned right with a sharp upward tail. Maya pointed to a tiny blue smear beside the N. When Mama signs, the ink smears this way because her hand passes over it. She pointed to the pay stub. This one smears the other way. Marcus's smile held, but a muscle moved near his jaw. Ink smears, Mr. Cross. Children make stories out of accidents. Maya did not answer him. She turned the pay stub slightly, revealing two small staple holes along the torn edge. It was stapled to the other half, she whispered. The half with his initials on it. Julian looked up. Marcus had gone perfectly still. Julian did not touch the paper again. He only looked at the staple holes, then at Marcus. A simple test, he said. Marcus blinked once. Excuse me? You said everything was signed and documented. Then the original payroll packet should match the copy in your office. Marcus recovered quickly. He gave a polite smile to the customers still pretending not to watch. Of course, but payroll files contain private information. We can't display employee records in the middle of a retail floor because a child is upset. Then bring only Nadine Brooks's packet, Julian said, and the signature log. Marcus folded his hands in front of his apron. Mr. Cross, with respect, vendor meetings are not labor hearings. Maya's face burned. She could feel the room deciding whether she was brave or embarrassing. The security guard had not touched her, but he stood close enough that she could smell rain on his jacket. Marcus turned toward her with that gentle public voice again. Maya, if you are wrong, you understand what this does to your mother, don't you? False accusations can make it very hard for someone to keep a job. The words landed exactly where he aimed them. Maya looked at the steel door. For 1 second, she was not a child accusing a business owner. She was a daughter standing between her mother and hunger. Julian saw her fingers tighten around the clinic paper until the crease almost tore. He still did not know if she was right, but he knew Marcus had just threatened a sick woman through her child. That was enough for a test. Bring the file, Julian said. Now. Marcus nodded to Elena, the assistant manager, who had been frozen near the pastry case with a tablet against her chest.
Office cabinet.
Blue folder. Ms. Brooks. Elena hurried away too quickly. Maya watched her go, then whispered, That's the wrong cabinet. Marcus laughed under his breath. Now she knows our filing system too. Maya did not answer him. She pointed toward the back hallway, not to the office door, but to a gray metal cabinet half hidden behind stacked flour sacks. The real timesheets are there. Bottom drawer. The handle sticks unless you lift it first. The cashier made a small sound, almost a scoff. How would you know that? Maya's eyes stayed on the cabinet. My mom counted hours after closing. She said if numbers are far away from the flour, somebody moved them. Julian let the silence stretch. Then he looked at Derek. Open the gray cabinet. Marcus stepped sideways. Absolutely not. That area is staff only. So was your office, Julian said. Open both. For a moment, Marcus looked as if he might refuse. Then he smiled, pulled a key ring from his pocket, and selected a brass key. He opened the office door himself, confident now, while Derek went to the gray cabinet. Elena returned with a blue folder, neat and clean. Inside was a payroll sheet showing Nadine Brooks had worked 32 hours. Her signature sat at the bottom. Marcus placed it on the counter like a closing argument. There. Across the room, Derek lifted the gray cabinet handle. Stuck. Maya whispered. Up first. Derek lifted, then pulled. The drawer opened with a metallic cough. Inside were wrinkled timesheets dusted with flour. Julian took one. Nadine Brooks. Clock in 5:02 p.m. Clock out 2:13 a.m. 5 nights in a row. Not 32 hours. 72 and a half. The result did not solve everything. It did something worse. Proved there were two sets of numbers. Marcus stared at the drawer, then forced a smile. Old drafts. Internal estimates. But when he reached to gather the flour-dusted sheets, his sleeve brushed the blue office folder, flipping the top page over. On the back, in black ink, were two initials beside the torn staple marks. MV. Marcus saw the initials before Julian said anything. For the first time that morning, his hand moved faster than his smile. He pressed his palm over the back of the blue folder and slid it toward himself. That is internal notation, he said. Managers initial drafts all the time. Julian did not reach for it. He watched Marcus hide it, and somehow that was more useful than holding it. Then you won't mind showing the camera footage from last night. Marcus's expression settled back into place. Kitchen cameras are currently under maintenance. Maya turned toward the bread rack so quickly her braid brushed her cheek. Not that one. Everyone looked where she pointed. Above the rack of cooling sourdough, half hidden by a hanging thermometer, was a camera no bigger than a bottle cap. Its red light blinked once. Then again. Elena whispered, "Oh God." Before she could stop herself, Marcus snapped his head toward her. It doesn't record sound, he said. Maya looked at Julian. But it sees hands. Julian felt the room shift again. Not toward belief yet, toward fear. He nodded to Derek. Pull the footage. Mr. Cross, Marcus said, voice lower now. You are exposing yourself and your company to liability. You have a board. You have shareholders. You can't let a child turn a bakery into a courtroom. Julian finally looked at him. No. But I can let a camera show me what happened in my supplier's kitchen. Derek brought a small monitor from the security shelf. Elena's fingers trembled as she entered the password. She tried the first one and failed. Maya spoke softly from beside the counter. It's Bread 2024. He says passwords should inspire the staff. Elena froze, then typed it. The screen opened. Marcus's face went white around the mouth. Maya did not smile. She stood very still, as if smiling would make the truth less serious. The footage from 1:47 a.m. filled the monitor in grainy color. Nadine Brooks appeared near the freezer door, shoulders bent, hair tucked under a net, both hands wrapped around a metal tray. She moved slowly, the way adults move when pain has become part of the job. Marcus entered from the left with a white envelope. Nadine signed a sheet. He took the sheet back. She opened the envelope. Empty. Even without sound, anyone could understand the moment her face changed. Nadine touched the envelope, then pointed to the paper. Marcus pointed toward the black ledger under his arm. Then Nadine reached for one sandwich from the rejected tray, wrapped it in a napkin, and held it against her stomach like an apology. Marcus snatched it from her hand and threw it into the trash. Maya made no sound. Her eyes filled, but her face stayed lifted. The footage continued. Nadine tried to lift another tray, staggered, and caught herself against the freezer door. Marcus stepped around her, not to help, but to pick up the envelope she had dropped. Julian's throat tightened. This was no longer an irregularity. This was a method. Then the timestamp jumped. 1:52 a.m. became 2 a.m. 7 minutes were missing. Julian noticed it. So did Maya. She whispered, "That's when she fell." Marcus said nothing. On the screen, at 2:01, Clara Voss's name flashed in a message preview on Marcus's phone lying beside the register. Handle Brooks before Cross arrives. The message on Marcus's phone stayed on the frozen screen for only 3 seconds, but 3 seconds was enough to change the temperature of the room. Handle Brooks before Cross arrives. Julian knew that name. Clara Voss was not a stranger in some distant department. She was his procurement director, the woman who sat 2 seats from him in quarterly reviews, the woman who had recommended Vale and Crust as a community-centered supplier with excellent compliance. Marcus reached for the monitor. "Private communication," he said sharply. "That preview proves nothing." Julian caught his wrist before he touched the screen. He did not squeeze. He did not need to. "Then you won't object to explaining the missing 7 minutes." Marcus pulled his hand back and adjusted his cuff as if Julian had merely inconvenienced him. "Power interruption. Old building. Happens all the time." Maya shook her head. "Not at 1:52. Marcus turned on her so smoothly that most customers would still have called it patience. "Maya, sweetheart, you are frightened. Frightened children connect things that aren't connected." Maya stepped closer to the freezer door. At 1:52, the mixer stops. She pointed toward the large industrial mixer near the flour sacks. Its steel bowl reflected everyone's shoes in warped shapes. When the mixer stops, everybody hears it. Mama said that's when the whole kitchen gets quiet enough to hear the office printer. Julian looked at the printer behind the half-open office door. A small gray machine, ordinary, forgettable. Maya continued, "Last night," she said. The printer started after she fell. Elena covered her mouth. Marcus's eyes cut toward her. Too late. Julian saw it. "What printed?" he asked. No one answered. Maya reached into her coat again. Not for the badge, not for the clinic paper, but for a strip of paper curled like a receipt. "I found this in the trash by the dumpsters." It stuck to Mama's coat. Julian took it. It was not a receipt. It was the bottom of a printed statement, torn unevenly. Only a few lines remained. "I was told deductions would continue until I stopped asking questions. I did not receive the advances listed under my name. I am afraid of losing my room if I report this again." Below that was half a date and the beginning of a name. Nadine B. Marcus laughed once, but the sound was dry. "Disgruntled workers write dramatic things all the time." Maya pointed to the back of the paper. "It has the copier line." Julian flipped it over. A faint machine code ran along the edge. "VC, Office, 02, 1:55 a.m. The statement had been printed during the missing 7 minutes. Not before. Not days earlier. During the gap. Julian's mind began assembling the room differently. The deleted footage. The empty envelope. The forged payroll sheet. Clara's message. The statement printed after Nadine fell. Then an old memory surfaced. Clara standing in his boardroom 6 months ago, smiling beside Marcus, saying, "This partnership is clean. I checked it myself." Marcus saw the recognition settle in Julian's face and tried one more time. "Your director approved us, Julian. Your foundation praised us. Your hotels serve our bread. If there's blame, it doesn't stop at my door." And that was the moment Julian understood the worst truth of all. Marcus had not fooled his company from the outside. Someone Julian trusted had opened the door and held it for him. Julian did not answer Marcus. That was the first thing that frightened him. Rich men usually defended themselves quickly when their names were touched. They corrected, threatened, distanced, performed. Julian did none of those things. He only folded. the torn statement once, placed it inside his contract folder, and looked toward the office printer as if it had become a witness. Nadine needs medical attention, he said. Call an ambulance. Marcus lifted both hands, palms open. We have an internal first aid protocol. Call an ambulance, Julian repeated. This time the cashier moved before Marcus could stop her. Maya ran to the small break room behind the freezer and came back with her mother leaning against her shoulder. Nadine's face had the gray shine of someone trying to stay upright by will alone. When she saw the papers in Julian's hand, shame crossed her face before fear did. I didn't want trouble, she whispered. Maya wrapped both arms around her waist. You're not trouble, Mama. Julian heard that. He did not look at them because looking too long would make everyone think this had become sentimental. It had not. It had become evidence. He took out his phone and called one person, not his board, not Clara, not company legal. Amara, he said when the line opened. I need you at Vale and Crust with a forensic copy kit, an employment attorney, and someone who can mirror a security drive without touching the original. Marcus's smile returned in pieces. Julian, that sounds excessive. It is precise. You are creating legal exposure for yourself. I am preserving it. While they waited, Julian moved quietly. He photographed the timesheets beside the clean payroll packet. He recorded the blinking red light of the bread rack camera. He asked Derek for the access log to the back entrance. Derek hesitated, looking at Marcus. Julian saw the hesitation and understood another small truth. Even the guard knew who really controlled the room. Give it to me, Julian said. Derek opened the tablet. The log showed Nadine's badge entering at 4:58 p.m. and never leaving. But the office payroll marked her shift ending at 10 o'clock. Maya, still holding her mother's hand, whispered. She always tapped out by the flower wall. Not the back door. Julian looked at the removed time clock mark on the wall. 2 screw holes. A cleaner rectangle. Flour gathered beneath it like pale dust around a grave. Marcus stepped closer. This is harassment of a local business owner in front of staff and customers. I have reporters coming tomorrow for the Bread for Every Child launch. You don't want your foundation dragged into a misunderstanding. There it was, PR. Then his phone rang. He glanced down and for the first time did not answer quickly enough. Julian saw the name before Marcus turned the screen away. Clara Voss. Julian said nothing. He opened his own phone and texted Amara. Pull all Clara approvals on Vale. Quietly, Maya tugged his sleeve. Sir, she said, barely audible. He keeps the black book behind the charity sign when inspectors come. Marcus turned toward her so sharply that Nadine flinched. But Julian stepped between them without raising his voice. Then tomorrow, he said, looking at Marcus at last. We'll let your charity sign do what it was made to do. Marcus stared at him and the room finally understood. The child was no longer standing alone. By 9 the next morning, Vale and Crust looked less like a bakery than a stage built to forgive itself. White ribbons hung from the pastry cases. A banner stretched across the front window. Bread for every child. Donors gathered with paper cups of coffee. Local reporters adjusted tripods near the counter where Maya had been told she was short 33 cents. Marcus Vale stood beside a covered display, wearing a white chef's coat so clean it seemed untouched by flour, smiling as if kindness had always belonged to him. Clara Voss sat in the front row with 2 board members from Cross Hospitality, her legs crossed, her face smooth and unreadable. Julian entered without entourage. Nadine came in beside him, weak but upright, her hospital bracelet tucked under her sleeve. Maya walked on her other side, carrying a small brown paper bag against her chest. Marcus saw the cameras turn toward them and moved first. Maya, he called warmly, opening his arms just enough for photographs. I'm so glad you and your mother came. Before we begin, Vale and Crust would like to present your family with emergency assistance. An employee lifted a poster board, $10,000 donation to the Brooks family. Applause started immediately, eager and relieved. Marcus had chosen his battlefield well. If Maya accepted, she became proof of his generosity. If she refused, she became ungrateful. Maya looked at the check, then at her mother's hand. Nadine squeezed once. Maya stepped forward alone. She was too short for the microphone, so Julian lowered it, then stepped back. He did not speak over her. Maya opened the paper bag and placed 3 things on the glass counter: a cold sandwich, the torn pay stub, and an empty white envelope. The applause died unevenly, like lights going out in separate rooms. "This is what my mom got after 72 hours, Maya said. Marcus laughed softly, already prepared. "A child has misunderstood a private payroll matter." Julian lifted one finger. The screen behind the ribbon display changed. First came the payroll sheet. Nadine Brooks, 72.5 hours. Net pay $6.40. Then the clinic signature beside the forged payroll signature. Then the flour-dusted timesheet. Then the access log showing Nadine's badge entered at 4:58 p.m. and never left. Marcus turned toward the reporters. "Selective documents are not evidence." The footage began. On screen, Marcus handed Nadine an envelope. Nadine opened it. Empty. Then he took the sandwich from her hand and threw it away. Someone in the crowd gasped. Marcus's face hardened.
No audio.
No context. Julian nodded once to Amara, who stood near the register with a laptop. The next slide appeared. Clara's email to Marcus, timestamped before Julian's arrival. "Handle Brooks before Cross arrives." Clara stood. "That is privileged internal communication." Maya reached into her coat and pulled out the curled copier strip she had found by the dumpsters. Julian placed it under the document camera. Nadine's statement filled the screen, including the copier code and time. 1:55 a.m. During the missing 7 minutes. One by one, kitchen workers stepped forward and laid empty envelopes beside Maya's. Marcus reached for the microphone. Julian took it first. His voice was quiet, almost tired. "Every camera drive, ledger, access log, and payroll file has been mirrored and delivered to outside counsel and state labor investigators." He turned to Marcus. "Smile carefully. This is evidence now." Marcus did not smile. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, as if every sentence he had ever used to control a room had suddenly been taken from him. Clara reached for her purse, but Amara stepped into the aisle with 2 state labor investigators who had entered quietly through the side door. No one shouted. That made it worse. Marcus was asked to leave his own stage with flour still painted on the charity banner behind him. Clara was escorted out after Julian read the board's emergency resolution aloud. Suspended pending investigation, access revoked, all vendor approvals frozen. The cameras kept rolling. 3 weeks later, the sign above Vale and Crust came down under a gray morning sky. The bakery license was under review. The Attorney General's office had opened a wage theft investigation. Marcus's accounts were frozen for restitution. But Julian knew punishment was only the loudest part of justice, not the deepest part. The deeper part happened in a room without reporters, inside the old bakery after the marble counters had been cleared and the gold-lettered price cards removed. Folding chairs lined the floor where customers once stood pretending not to stare. Former kitchen workers sat with their families, hands folded, eyes cautious. On the counter were envelopes, but this time they were not empty. Each one held corrected wages, overtime, penalties, and a printed statement removing every false debt Marcus had written beside their names. One by one, people were called forward by their full names. Not night prep, not temporary help, not kitchen staff. Names. When Nadine Brooks was called, the room went still. She stood slowly. Maya stood with her, not in front of her, not behind her, but beside her. Julian did not hand Nadine a check like a savior offering mercy. He placed 3 documents on the counter: her corrected payroll record, a formal apology signed by Cross Hospitality's board, and a new policy requiring independent wage audits for every supplier before a single charity partnership could be announced. "Mrs. Brooks," Julian said, and his voice caught just enough for everyone to hear the cost of the truth. "My company praised the man who harmed you. We used your labor, ignored your warning, and called it generosity. I am sorry. Nadine looked at the apology for a long time. Then she touched her name on the corrected record as if making sure it would not disappear. "I just wanted my work to count," she said. Julian nodded. "It does now, and it will count for others." He offered her a paid position on the new Worker Safety Council, not as a symbol, but as someone who knew where abuse hid when inspectors smiled and left. Nadine signed with her left hand. The ink smeared downward, exactly the way Maya had said it would. Afterward, Maya opened the same brown paper bag from the ceremony. Inside was one sandwich, wrapped carefully, paid for with wages returned to Nadine. Maya placed it in front of her mother. Nadine broke it in half and ate first. She did not apologize for being hungry. Maya watched, and something small and tired finally left her face. Above the empty pastry case, Julian had replaced the charity banner with one plain sentence. No child should have to beg for the bread her mother made. This time, everyone read it in silence.